1 year ago, I released the round that almost broke Survivor, in which I discussed the final 7 round of Survivor 43, where, although extremely unlikely, there was the slimmest possibility that every single player could have been immune from elimination. To this day, it is my most popular video, something I can't thank you all enough for. I honestly never imagined that that video, or really any of them, would ever perform that well, but I'm still incredibly grateful for it. But then I thought, were there any other times this could have happened? And I think I found one, and it might just be even crazier than the final 7 of 43, if you can believe it. Why? Well, let's just dive right in. Like last time, I'll set the scene. It's the final 10 of Survivor 42. The remaining players are Tori, Lindsay, Jonathan, Mike, Romeo, Drea, Roxroy, Hai, Marianne, and Omer. The immunity challenge, known as Sea Legs, is your standard endurance challenge, where the players stand on wooden platforms in the water. The last to fall wins. But there's a catch. Instead of everyone competing against each other, the cast is divided into 2 groups of 5. Each group competes against the other members of their group for immunity, and also against the other team for reward. What that means is that 2 people will win immunity, one from each group, and the one who lasts the longest overall wins reward for their group. Confused yet? Don't worry, it only gets more complex from here. Team 1 consisted of Hai, Roxroy, Mike, Romeo, and Omer. And Team 2 had Jonathan, Drea, Lindsay, Marianne, and Tori. Hai won immunity for Team 1, and Jonathan for Team 2. Jonathan lasted the longest overall, so his team won reward, a meal of kebabs. So now the entire tribe is off to tribal council, right? Well, not exactly. The players weren't divided just for the challenge. Instead, each team also went to their own tribal, with Team 1 going first since they lost the reward portion of the challenge. This had been done before in Ghost Island, Island of the Idols, and Survivor 41, and is something that has appeared in some form in each subsequent season, so it's probably here to stay, at least for now. But before we go to tribal, let's go over everyone's status at this point. I've already talked about all the different advantages in a prior video, so I'm going to assume you all already know what they are and how they work. Mike, Marianne, and Drea all have idols. Though it never made air, we know through interviews that Omer had an idol nullifier. Marianne has an extra vote, and Drea has a knowledge is power. None of the non-idol advantages are really relevant for this discussion, but I figured I'd mention them anyway. Finally, let's talk about the advantage amulet. Okay, so on day 1, at the first challenge, 1 representative from each tribe, Drea, Hai, and Lindsay, each received a piece of an amulet. This season, the advantage works like this. If all 3 are still in the game, they can be used as an extra vote. With 2, they become a vote steal, and with 1, it becomes a full-fledged idol. Before we start talking about hypotheticals, let's go over what actually happened. Roxroy is voted out unanimously at the first tribal, in part due to his suggestion of forming an all-male alliance, which the others weren't really down for. The second tribal is the much more interesting and infamous of the 2. Yeah, I'll do my best to be as tactful with this one as possible. So, upon seeing Roxroy being voted out, and with Chanel having been voted out previously, Drea and Marianne both agreed to put the game aside and play their idols before voting to ensure that a third black contestant wouldn't get voted out in a row. Normally you play idols after voting, but this is no longer a strict ruling, as Ben did the same thing back in season 35. So since Jonathan won immunity, and Drea and Marianne both played their idols, the only ones who can go home are Lindsay and Tori. Tori is the agreed upon consensus target, so Jeff decides that a formal vote isn't necessary, as the result seems pretty conclusive. Though Tori still had her shot in the dark, which she was allowed to play in order to give her a chance of staying. It did not land, so Tori was officially eliminated from the game. Now, let's start talking about all the ways these 2 tribals could have gone insanely wrong. As mentioned earlier, we have 3 people with idols, Drea, Marianne, and Mike. If all 3 of them happen to be on the same split team, say with Jonathan who won immunity and 1 other random person, then there's the possibility for all 3 idols to be played, which would either result in a default elimination or the last person playing and landing their shot in the dark, making everyone immune. Also, I already went over this in a previous video, but as I understand it, at tribal councils of this size, it would only be possible for 1 person to successfully land their shot in the dark, just in case you were wondering. Finally, it's time to talk about the amulet, cause hoo boy, that thing opens up a whole new can of worms in regards to this round. As mentioned earlier, if one of the 3 initial shared holders of the amulet are left in the game, it becomes an idol. So if one of Drea, Lindsay, or Hai were left, now all of a sudden we have 4 idols in play. Let's say, hypothetically, Lindsay was voted out at Final 11 instead of Chanel, and Hai left at the first split tribal instead of Roxroy. Now Drea has 2 idols. If she also happened to be on the same team as Mike, Marianne, Jonathan, who won immunity, and one other random person, now 4 idols could potentially be played, which would also result in everyone being immune without even needing the shot in the dark. So yeah, that's 2 possible scenarios where everyone could be immune, and probably even a third I can't think of at the moment. If you remember what I said in the original video about the show trying to balance the game so that, regardless of the amount of idols or advantages in play, that at least one person would be vulnerable for elimination, well, that balance clearly does not account for split tribals. Just due to the nature of dividing the tribe in half and having such a small number of players at one tribal council, with so many advantages still in play, opens the door for scenarios like this. All left up to a roll of the dice. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, that's up to you. We, as online Survivor fans, tend to have our own contained set of rules and standards for how the game should be. But in all reality, we only account for a small subset of the total viewership, and I don't doubt that a substantial amount of fans love to see crazy WTF scenarios like this. This also applies to all the ludicrous twists and format changes that the show has done. You don't have to like any of these, but that's just where the show is now. And personally, regardless of how things go, I look forward to experiencing it. The highs and the lows. Thank you all for watching. I'm thinking of turning this into a series, where I go over crazy Survivor rounds in depth in order to try and make sense of what happened. Let me know if you'd be interested in that, and if there are any rounds you'd love to see discussed. Alright, see you in the next one.